All right. The crippling lameness and gayness of WWE has just been too much lately. Too much Zest Rollins, too much CM Stunk, and way too much Cody Rhodes. So let's give AEW Dynamite another go. Shows in Mexico this week, that's nice. And we kick off with Excalibur, an okay commentator. Nigel McGuinness, a pretty good commentator. And, oh no, Tony Schiavone, Mr. Nothing to Say, so I'll just agree with the other two. Still better than Michael Dole and Shat McAfee, of course. Hangman Page is in the house. Huge pop from the crowd, to be fair to him, as he storms out to the ring. Got to admire Page for having no wasted motion, no hokey long entrance, no dawdling, no silly posers, just storms to the ring, aggressive, a man with purpose. Page cut a strong babyface promo about his early years and connected it to his current feud with Jonathan Moxley. This whole promo was in Spanish, which the crowd loved, of course. Excalibur just about kept up with translating it until he gave up near the closing stretch. Opening with a wrestling match is normally always better than a promo. Get straight to the action, something AEW is normally better for. But this was a fine promo that didn't outstay its welcome. So for those who don't watch CMLL, which is almost everyone outside of Mexico, including yours truly, a lot of these crossover matches were, frankly, quite meaningless and destined to alienate casual interest in the product for the week. Adam Cole, the man whose entire life and career spiraled the moment he left the warm embrace of Triple Nose in NXT, is looking sickly as ever. Even with the fact he's clearly started making some effort at the gym again. Daniel Garcia, charisma vacuum, his awkward, gormless walk to the ring without the dancing gimmick, is truly the epitome of no aura. Brody King, good wrestler, good brawler. Got a bit of jobber stank on him from being one of Malachi Black's expendable henchmen for so long, though, unfortunately. Kyle Fletcher, promising young talent, nowhere near a finished product yet, nearly handed Adam Cole head injury number 6,000 the other week. Konosuke Takeshita, best wrestler in this bout by a wide margin, explosive, powerful athlete with great physicality and selling, hard-hitting offense. Paces and times he spots perfectly. And Dax Harwood, one half of Find the Remote, is also there. They used to be the best tag team in the world. I don't know what happened there. What's that? You want me to run through all the luchadors I've never heard of as well? Brody King decided to be a virtue-signaling hero with his little Abolish ICE shirt. I'm not going to comment on his views. I'm just going to say know when to hold them and know when to fold them. This is a wrestling show. People come to be entertained, not reminded of the turmoil in the real world outside. Bandito and Adam Cole got some decent reactions in fast-paced, very cluttered multi-man match to rev the audience up for the show to come. The opening segment between Takeshita and Bandito was great. Once they got past dueling, pointing at each other's. Okay. Which led to Hechicero or Hichikero, whatever the hell his name is, or however you say it, I don't know, getting a big pop for facing off with Bandito. Garcia did wind up doing his dance here, and the Mexican crowd were even less impressed than the US ones, clearly favouring their countrymen over interchangeable AEW twink number 4. Oh, everyone here hates this Atlantis Jr. guy for some reason, which got even weirder when the commentary team seemed audibly uncomfortable with acknowledging that everyone hates Atlantis Jr. It's a bit strange. Kyle Fletcher was on bonehead duty, clumsily charging into the ring to get beaten down with a shed load of super kicks, the most overused, devalued move in all of professional wrestling today. All of that just to set up a commercial, too. At least this is just the first commercial break of the match. WWE would have had 3 already. Scary moment where Templario, I think that's what you say, something like that, landed right on his head while nailing a Revolution fly. The action throughout was rapid fire, with the luchadors and Takeshita really carrying the action. The rest of the AEW guys were barely keeping up with the high-flying pace set at certain points. The finish made Dax Harwood look like an absolute buffoon as he stood about gloating, trying to get heel heat for putting the boots on Atlantis Sr., who the crowd have already made clear they despise, as well as his son, before walking into a surprise pin to cost his team the bout. Alright then, fun spotfest for what it was. Don't go seeking realism in this style of cluster fight mayhem though. Mark Briscoe, wants to avenge Kenny Omega's vital organs. Last week, an elbow from Okada caused Omega to vomit up the bottle of chocolate sauce he drank in the back for some reason right before showtime. Omega's painfully, chronically constipated facial expressions as he spat up way too much fake blood to be at all realistic as an internal injury was utterly hilarious. For a guy who's put together some of the most inventive, high-action matches of his generation, Omega still can't emote or act to save his life half the time. Mark Briscoe and Jay Briscoe, best tag team of their generation, amazing performers, and it's great that Mark Briscoe has maintained a singles career since his brother's tragic passing. It's just a shame he spends so much of it looking at the ceiling. He was wrestling Kazuchika Okada here, the Japanese GOAT contender turned lazy US paycheck collector. The utter downfall of Okada's work ethic and enthusiasm for wrestling really needs to be studied. Of course, a big part of it is no doubt the debilitating pain he's in most of the time, from years of hard bumps on the head and neck in his 40-minute New Japan wars. Mark Briscoe had the fans behind him here, using it to his advantage with a fiery babyface underdog performance. A nonchalant Okada is being booked to show off a more sadistic side, despite his lack of self-expression, with the implication being that Scarlet Bordeaux's #1 fan, Don Callis, is getting in his ear. Palpatine to Vader style, to make him more psychotic, much like what he did with Takeshita and Fletcher. Callis on commentary was hyped about destroying his old pal Omega once and for all at All In, leaving me more convinced than ever that babyface Omega will get the win done, but we'll see. Credit to the commentary here for actually giving fans some interesting trivia and backstory rather than just lame jokes and corporate buzz phrases. They brought up Okada's early days as a student of Ultimo Dragon in Mexico, which, while not much, was just nice to have some detailed commentary on the performers and their stories. The story of this match followed an aggressive, energetic Briscoe taking the fight to a more collected Okada, surviving Briscoe's early onslaughts to outmaneuver and outwit him as the match wore on. Briscoe made a few spirited comebacks, including fighting out of Okada's tombstone, but was later squashed by a very weak top rope elbow from Okada, who got no height at all on the move. A far cry from the explosive elbow drop of his early years. Briscoe having to bite Okada with the few teeth he actually has left served as a just wonderful reminder to always avoid steel chairs coming straight at your mouth. Not that you should really need reminding to know to avoid such things, of course. Anyways, Briscoe hit a neat, froggy bow but couldn't follow up with the J Driller, and ultimately came undone via Tombstone and the Rainmaker to get Okada a win. Post-match, in a bid to get this nastier, edgier version of Okada more heat, he and Callis put a beating on Briscoe. Made sense, it was good booking to get some cheap heat, but Okada is so emotionally sterile and monotone in his performances and demeanour now that it's going to be an uphill battle to really establish this new mean streak convincingly. Oh, Grande America, MJF out next, the token orange member of the Hurt Syndicate, decked out in US flag luchador parody attire. Místico is a megastar in Mexico, and these fans simply could not get enough of him. The other week, MJF brought up Místico's botch-laden disaster of a run in WWE as Sin Cara, an early example of the many, many triple-nose flops over the years. And while the line was amusing, it highlighted a huge issue in wrestling today, and that is the frequent tearing up of kayfabe for cheap heat and promos. Mentioning Místico's run was full of botches automatically nods to this all being a choreographed work. And bringing up something from the competition from over a decade ago only worsens this, whilst making everyone in the here and now feel a little bush league by extension. Anyways, the crowd support for Místico ensured MJF's heel troll antics were also hugely over, with the Long Islander getting booed out of the building for just about every little thing he did here. It's since leaked out that at least one crazed fan was out to get MJF after this show, thanks to his work here, which is genuinely impressive in this day and age of blatant fakery and curtain pull-ups. MJF proudly waved the US flag in his US costume for his entrance, much to everyone's disgust in the live crowd. Místico, meanwhile, got the megastar treatment with a massive ovation and the crowd loudly singing along to his entrance theme. To kick things off, MJF used his size and aggression to bully the masked man, who made a comeback with an impressive top rope arm drag and a slick code red. MJF slowed the pace of the match down, irritating fans as he managed to avoid his opponent's high-flying ways and later used his Hurt Syndicate buddies to protect him and regain control of the match. The story heavily focused on MJF's towering arrogance, with him frequently holding up the match to showboat and taunt the crowd, to the point that even MVP was angrily shouting at him to stay focused on his opponent. Bobby Lashley and the man Hulk Hogan calls Benjamin Shelton started weaseling their way into the match, putting the hurt, no pun intended, on Místico while the dozy referee wasn't watching. MJF did that very unfortunate pelvic thrust of his, clattering his sweaty gonads into Místico's face, who was seemingly brought back to life from this violation, making a spirited comeback shortly thereafter, prompting MJF to flee the ring. They repeated this structure with MJF later acting like he was completely done with the match, ultimately luring Místico into a rough tombstone on the floor. Místico did manage to beat the 10 count though, because pile drivers on the outside floor just aren't what they used to be apparently. The closing stretch was MJF stooping even further into weasel territory as he tapped out while the referee again wasn't looking, this hopeless idiot referee. He then failed to win the bout via low blow and schoolboy, so he just gave up and booted Místico right in his little Místicos for the DQ finish. MJF and the Hurt Boys got massive heat for yanking Místico's mask off post-match, but were quickly ran off by a selection of high-flying, undersized babyfaces. Decent action and psychology for what it was, with MJF as his usual troll self, a gimmick that, while still often amusing, has noticeably worn thin over the past year compared to the earlier days of his heel work in AEW. Up next, 4 trampoline midgets play with each other. Hologram, who kinda doesn't wrestle, but looks like a discount Axiom, which is really saying something given the Temu vibes of Axiom, is undefeated apparently. Hologram, that is. Ricochet is now a 4chan edgelord, definitely better than the sterile, zero-personality babyface he was for many years in WWE, of course. Lio Rush no longer asks Bobby Lashley to bend over, and Mascara Dorado, who used to wrestle in New Japan sometimes, I don't know, whatever. Story kicked off with Ricochet and Lio Rush ganging up on the masked faces, almost turning this bout into a tornado tag-style match in the process. That, of course, quickly went tits up, with Ricochet and Rush having a falling out, turning this match into an all-flips showcase of each guy's gymnastic skills. The work between Hologram and Dorado really lit this match up, as they moved smoothly through a variety of lucha libre exchanges and increasingly wild moves. Ultimately, after a lot of rapid-fire, high-flying fun, Ricochet and Rush had some awkward exchanges on the top rope before Hologram came back into action, eventually planting Rush with a great portal bomb for the win. This has been a good show so far, so it's been quite fun, quite colourful. Plenty of good action, and a heated crowd who are really enjoying it, that always helps. It would be a real shame if something terrible happened next. Oh, would you look at that, something truly awful has occurred. Butch Sadie's Brocade, wrestling's #1 wig collector, is in the house to pick up another random singles title no one cares about. The Thanos of obscure women's championships that encourage viewers to take their toilet break now, while nothing good is going on. So CMLL have signed over their women's belt to the biggest mark for themselves in the history of professional wrestling, worse than the likes of Hogan, Hart, or Goldberg, or anyone else with that unfortunate reputation. All these belts, and still, zero auras, still promos that sound like a mildly retarded child with a blocked nose trying to act in kindergarten drama classes. Anyways, Mercedes Mone, the CMLL defeated Zeus Lady. Who exactly was the face here? Mercedes Mone is normally a healer, but Zeus Lady rudely refused a handshake at the start of the match, and was then needlessly aggressive with famed cerebral palsy attention whore referee Aubrey Edwards. They tried to sell this match like Zeus Lady was frequently on the cusp of winning with a whole lot of near falls that failed to pump the crowd or convince anyone the match was actually in danger of ending. Butch Sadie's has been booked as unbeatable for so long now that it's comically unlikely she'll be jobbing here, or anywhere for that matter, anytime soon, much to the devastation of Toni Storm fans next month. Zeus Lady went for a big tope to the outside, which sounds a little bit like toupee, something the Oa knows a thing or two about, and landed right on her head, shocking landing, before eating Mercedes's clam to the face with that meaty aura that nearly always looks like an inch from going horribly wrong on Impact. This was just Botchplex City, one slip after another, as is customary with Mercedes Mone. Everything has to look very disjointed and blatantly worked, like a dance rehearsal gone wrong. All while we're expected to act like she's the women's equivalent of a prime Shawn Michaels or something. Ridiculous. You'd have to be on as many drugs as prime Shawn Michaels was to believe that. Zeus lady went for some body slam thing in the corner and Botchsades then did a... Oh, bloody hell, I didn't even know what this was. A power slam? Only with no powers, so just a slam. Whatever the hell it was that ended the match and gave the Oa another damn title And it gets better. Confetti rained down like this was some monumental moment in wrestling history and not just a butchy clown who was heavily overhyped by WWE's marketing team, now taking other promotions for a ride while stinking out their shows and sapping their ratings. Dreadful! Fortunately, the celebration of Mercedes Mone didn't last as Toni Storm and Mina Big Jugs and Mina Big Jugs' Big Jugs came out to hand the Oa a little setback. Mone got hit with a German suplex whilst holding her countless prop belts, which was quite a funny sight in fairness, easily the highlight of this whole portion of the show. Mone ran into the crowd, which was incredible to watch as she wrapped her arms around people. Incredible to see her up close and personal with fans, given her photo policy for marks at conventions. And then Toni Storm just kind of rolled around on the canvas after talking about games or something. Good grief. Main event time. Alright, let's wash the taste of that out of our mouths. Let's move on. Last year, the Young Cucks, Cac Puny, and Kazuchika No Aura ran a hostile takeover angle of AEW that everyone hated. That was prematurely dropped. Failing to learn from that lesson, AEW ran an additional hostile takeover angle with Jonathan Moxley and the Dick Riders that is still going to this day. In that time, Moxley has locked away the world title in a briefcase and had just plain putty feuds with a variety of talents from Orange Cassidy to Edge to Bryan Danielson to Swerve Strickland, all while hampering the hype surrounding this show and clogging up a world title scene that could actually be very exciting and entertaining if he just got out of the way for a change. In the early days of AEW, Moxley was one of their most dependably over talents, a hard-grafting, hardcore tweener with solid promo chops who could pop a crowd. Now, though, he's a blading-addicted mess of a performer who clumsily stumbles through poor cracks at jiu-jitsu-style ground offense and shaky, unconvincing brawling on the feet. This nonsensical heel gimmick ran its course before it even really got started, and again, far from learning their lessons, AEW now actually have Moxley and friends teaming up with the Young Cucks. Cesaro was not here tonight. He was meant to be, but he got replaced, out of nowhere, by colourful jobber the Beast Mortos. Why, you might ask? Well, I'm not going to delve too much into it. All I'm going to say is that the Beast's journey to this match involved riding in a Mercedes. Why he has to replace a great wrestler like Cesaro when charisma-free twink jobber Wheeler Yuta is right there to be taken out of the match is anyone's guess. On the other team, you've got Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland, two of AEW's most dynamic performers. You've got the always great Samoa Joe, you've got alleged brain removal survivor Katsuyori Shibata, and you've got should-be rising star Powerhouse Hobbs. Much like the opener, this was an all-action, multi-man cluster fight with a good helping of crowd heat to further liven it up. Ospreay is in a terrible state after taking that thumbtack kick for Swerve last week. Why exactly the Bucks opted to not just kick Swerve as well afterwards is still up for debate. Some hard-slamming exchanges between Ospreay and the Oa's trustier, newer, himbo led to a control period where the Bucks wore down, or should that be grinded down in Ospreay's case, with Strickland trying and failing horribly to help his new pal out. Now, obviously, I'll edit the sound of this video before I upload it, but if you hear the faint audible thing of a car engine and white trash yelling, it is a couple outside having an argument no one cares about. My goodness, I wish the UK was more lax with its gun laws. I could really fix problems like that on the street. Anyways, Yuta then got tagged in but due to his hair covering his eyes like a big dumb sheepdog, he couldn't see what was going on, and Ospreay and Strickland handed him a beating. Good. Joe and Shibata got in on this as well, with the unthreatening dork of the Dick Riders clan doing what he does best, taking it. Moxley and Hobbs were both allowed to look strong in their own ways in this bout. The champ enjoyed control time over Ospreay in particular between the ropes, while Hobbs enjoyed the hot tag treatment, catching a double superkick attempt from the Bucks and running roughshod over the heels. Weird spot during this point where the referee was just mystically oblivious to all the shenanigans going on in the ring, and you just had poor Samoa Joe just pointing at it, and the ref just refusing to even turn his head slightly. But still, Hobbs is cool, so he won't trash this spot too much. Shibata squashed Yuta with his fantastic corner dropkick, en route to a stiff, big boy exchange between Hobbs and Mortos. Far from a jobber here, Beast Mortos was allowed to look like a beast for a change, sending both Hobbs and Shibata packing before getting into it with Samoa Joe. The crowd was loving this until the cuck stepped in, although the sight of Ospreay dodging the EVP trigger and landing a double Ozcutter was great. Ospreay and Strickland displayed neat tag team chemistry in the closing stretch, putting a beating on Moxley until the Bucks got involved again, leading to a dreadful finish. This was a fun match until this closing bit. The match closed on the dismal sight of Moxley getting a tights-grabbing roll-up win over Strickland to close the match. Very deflating. The post-match angle did help a bit though, as Moxley and the crew got some heat on Strickland. Hangman Page's music hit. There was a pause at the rant before he stormed on down to the ring. The mustache cowboy is here to help his long-time nemesis and the rest of the good guys. Moxley hightailed it after some brawling when it became clear the babyfaces were standing with Page to close the show. The babyfaces are all coming together. They've been moving towards this story idea for quite a while now. Overall, this was a largely entertaining edition of AEW with an enthusiastic crowd and plenty of in-ring action to enjoy. AEW's biggest problem right now is relying on two of the big three of the most overrated WWE stars of their generation in Jon Moxley, Mercedes Moné, and while it's just a relief Becky Lynch hasn't jumped ship to complete the trifecta. If the promotion were to get away from those two, it really would be a heating up product right now, with a lot of exciting talents and room for colourful angles. As it stands, while Hangman Page slowly reverting to being the babyface hero of old is neat, you can't help but suspect this is all just so Moxley can get a win back on him from last time they feuded, much like Mr. Death Jitsu's feud with Orange Cassidy last year. If the plan really is to leave the belt on Moxley, as is rumoured, until Sting's Mini-Me is back, then Darby Allin cannot come back soon enough.